to the Redskin. Go, Redskin.
What's good, people? Back again with another edition of Rated Redskin Radio. You know, I wanted to come on today and talk a little bit about a few different topics. But you know, one has been hanging on the edge of my brain for at least a week and a half now. And it's this America's Most Hated Companies list that I saw. Now, I won't lie to you, the list came off of kind of like a little bit of a 2-bit website. But it was highly promoted by the media. You know, everybody was kind of like, oh, check out this list, you know. And the list is pretty basic in the first few, you know. Facebook, I think, was the most hated. And you got down to like number 3 was Vice News. Number 4 was Jewel Company, which is an e-cig company. And there it was at number 5. The number 5 most hated company in America is the Washington Redskins. And, you know, this is something that I've been telling people for a while now, opposing fans, fellow fans, people who don't even like football. It appears like the Washington Redskins have become a target for not only the liberal media, but for pretty much everybody. It seems like it's just not a well-liked team. Now, that has a lot to do with the controversial name. You know, a lot of folks jumped to our defense back in 2012, 2011, even some in 2013. But it seems like a lot of people have kind of pulled back a little bit, and I think that's because of Daniel Snyder. Seems that Daniel Snyder is just one of the most hated people in all of the world. I won't say he's as hated as Donald Trump, but it's his hatred, you know, the hatred that he garners is Trump-like, which is crazy. Beyond being, you know, in the middle of a bunch of silly little controversies and being a kind of a cheapskate owner at times, and then overpaying certain players that were past their prime, and then pissing the fan base off here and there with different situations. And I could see why certain Redskin fans wouldn't like our owner. Of course, I could always see why fans don't like an owner when they're not winning. But my question is, are the Redskins really hated enough to be the top 5 most hated company in America? You know, for a Redskin fan, the first thing that comes to mind when you hear that is how much disdain there is with Bruce Allen right at this moment. But, of course, everybody also knows that mainly that's because, you know, even a person like myself who doesn't want to say bad things about Daniel Snyder, even I can see it with my own 2 eyes that Bruce Allen is nothing but a fall guy for Dan Snyder. In the long run, Allen will end up being shown the door, you know, and Danny Snyder will still be around. But even with that being said, Bruce Allen is still one of the most disliked people that I've seen in a long time amongst Redskin fans. I mean, and that's pretty hard. He's up there with Albert Haynesworth, a couple other of those names that I'm just going to go ahead and leave unsaid. But Allen did this interview this week. It was the first time he'd spoken in almost 600 days. I think it was like 588. And he basically said a whole bunch of crap. You know, it's I can't put it any more bluntly than that. It's the guy got up there and proceeded to give us a whole bunch of political garb. You know, I mean, he was asked, why should Redskins fans feel like you're the guy to run the team? And he says that he feels our faith, or he feels our passion, and he thinks we should be happy with him being there, feeling our passion. And I just was baffled by hearing that particular line in itself, because if he felt our passion, or if he understood our passion, or if he even was anywhere near understanding our passion. He would know that he should have been fired a long time ago. But, you know, sometimes that's the way the world works. And you can see when this guy's up there talking in this conversation that he's definitely a politician. But for some reason, Daniel Snyder and Bruce Allen just don't get it. The Redskin fans and those of us that, you know, basically keep the brand active beyond players, we're tired of his politics and we're ready to move on from it. You know, and further on those lists, I mean, you know, the Redskins were ranked above companies like Wells Fargo and GE and MoviePass and Twitter. You know, just the fact that we're a couple below Facebook is ridiculous to me, since Facebook is the most ridiculous company in all of companies right now. I mean, literally, they're taking heat around every corner. Anyhow, I wanted to ask something that I never ask from my subscribers. And I know that there are plenty of you that tune in maybe once a week or once every other week or whatever. And maybe you do it because you're only used to me uploading 1 or 2 videos, or maybe you do it because you don't get on YouTube but once in a while. Maybe you do it because you don't necessarily come to YouTube or realize that videos are being uploaded. If you could do me a favor, reach up, and next to the subscription bar, there's a little thing that looks like a bell, and it's a notification bell. If you could just do me a favor and hit that, then it will reassure both of us that the videos that I make are getting to everybody. Now, of course, if you don't want the notification, you don't have to hit the bell. But it's just a way for me to ensure that everybody is getting a chance to listen to my content. You know, I know that everybody subscribed to me, so it's obvious that everybody would like to hear it. So if you could just do that for me, that'd be great. Anyway, moving forward, you know, Allen did go into a couple conversations that were worthy of, I guess, speaking on, one of which was pertaining to the stadium. And he said the plan with the moat and the little, you know, thing around the stadium and the little ice skaters and all that, that was dead right after 60 Minutes got the footage. You know, I'm not certain what that was all played up to. It was probably kind of like a let's see what their reaction is kind of thing. But he went on to say that they want to build the best stadium in the entire world, which I actually believe that is their intent. And I believe if they get half the opportunity to do it, they will. Now, one thing to keep in mind is right now you've got Virginia, Maryland, and D.C. in on where the Skins may end up. But you also need to understand that Washington was hoping for a bidding war between the 3 states, okay, or the 3 areas. They were really, really hoping for the 3 areas to step up and to bid on what exactly was going to happen with the stadium and how the Redskins were going to be housed for the next however many years. And that hasn't happened. And with that not happening, it's thrown a lot of problems, a lot of monkey wrenches in the plans for Bruce Allen and Daniel Snyder. See, I think that Daniel Snyder figured that the stadium deals would be all inked by now and that they would know where they were heading at this point. Now, I do know that there is a clause in the contract that states that if they stay in the state of Maryland, that they don't have to wait out until 2027. So that's food for the brain right there, just a thought to keep you entertained inside of this. I know that D.C. is really inching towards wanting them back, but the problem is that you got council members who don't want it this way and other council members that want it that way, and you really have to start wondering in the long run, are they really going to approve a stadium deal? You know, it really makes you wonder what exactly is going to happen. And I'm almost certain that I saw something the other day about how, you know, the one thing that all the different states and all the different politicians, Republicans and Democrats, all agree on is that they don't want to give Daniel Snyder any public funding. So, that said, that means that Snyder will have to come out of pocket or get some investors, which he has plenty, mind you. He has Fred Smith, the chairman of FedEx, sitting right next to him as one of the minority owners of the team. So it's not like he doesn't have any capital or any buying power. I could see the same thing happening, perhaps, which was happening with the Rams and the Chargers deal with no public funding. Now, if that does go down, then I would expect the team would migrate to D.C. if Snyder has to come out of pocket. And the only reason why I expect that, because then they couldn't turn him down in any way. They at least not have an excuse to. Now, of course, they may come up with something, but if Snyder wants a chance to go back to D.C., the only chance he really has is while Trump is in office. Because when Trump's back out of office, whenever that is, then the chances of the Redskins moving into that stadium area again get a lot slimmer. I honestly think they'll end up in Virginia. It makes the most sense. Now, the only reason I could think of they'd end up back in Maryland would be if Maryland decides to pay for the stadium. Which, hey, if that happens, then end of conversation, right? But anyway, moving on. I just read a report not too long ago that the Redskins are not expecting Alex Smith to play in 2019. And that's not really that much of a surprise. I mean, it's kind of like, it's kind of like Captain Obvious at this point. We figured that he was not going to be ready to play this year. Most people sat back and were kind of like, there's no way that he's going to be ready for camp. There's no way that he's going to play most of this year. To hear that the Redskins are preparing to go without him doesn't come as much as a surprise to me. I myself would like to see where the team is at and where he's at come November to reassess things. I've heard a lot of people say that we should just go ahead and tank in 2019. You'll never hear me agree with that sentence because I always want my team to win. And I don't know how many more years I might be on this earth. It may only be another 20, 25, 30 years, if that. I mean, nobody's promised anything. It could only be another 5. I just want the team to win, and I want to be able to see them do something. I have a thought in the back of my brain that maybe one day I could see them win another Super Bowl. I've seen them win 3 already, so, I've had to wait a long time since the last one, and it's getting old. But to hear somebody say a tank season, I don't really like that idea. I mean, in the end, who's to say that another team might not tank worse and we end up with a second pick anyway? But Alex Smith not playing in 2019 obviously is going to hurt the team because we still got to pay him the $20 million, that he's owed. And he's not going to be there to help at all within any of the team's processes. Maybe he could stand on the sideline and help as far as talking to some of the guys, maybe coming in as and speaking as another quarterback's coach perhaps. But other than that, I'm not really certain how much he'll be even allowed to be involved. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes. Me personally, I'm just hoping the guy doesn't end up with a limp. I don't want to come up sounding like all I care about is him coming back to the Redskins. I want him to have a life, a normal life, like with his kids, and to be able to enjoy things and not have a problem for the rest of his living years. We'll have to play that one by ear to see where he's at physically. After seeing him with that spiral thingy on his leg the other day, I'm not too enthused on the chances of him playing a whole lot next year. I'm not. At first I said that I thought that he would be back at some point, and I begged off of that a little bit, and I'm going to sit back now and say that, come November we'll look at it again. But at this point, that conversation is now dead in the water. And it brings me into the next topic that I wanted to talk about, which was a report that came out, I believe, earlier last week, which was Daniel Jones and the Redskins maybe being a fit, and that the Redskins were thinking about moving up in the draft to maybe jump ahead of a Jacksonville or jump ahead of Denver at 10 and get Daniel Jones from Duke. Daniel Jones' stock is rising fast. A lot of it has to do with the thin quarterback class that we have right now. A lot of it has to do with what he's looked like at the Senior Bowl. The way that I look at things is Washington has to go in the next year thinking that they need the quarterback of the future, whether or not Alex Smith comes back in 2019 or 2020 or whatever happens. They have to be looking for the quarterback of the future now. And I know that Jay Gruden is thinking that way. He's entered each year as a coach, even the first one, thinking that he had no choice but to win, which is good in a way, bad in others when you know the team needs to build, and he may try to make bad decisions and do things in a speedy kind of way. I spoke on this in a couple of videos back. It might actually have been the last video I made where I talked about him maybe taking Kyler Murray on the thought of, him needing a spark with the offense and Murray definitely being able to provide it in the here and now, which could save Gruden's job. Otherwise, Gruden is in a lame duck season. A rookie quarterback could save a lame duck coach by playing, out of this world. I don't see a whole lot of guys right now in the draft setup that are really going to do that. I like Locke. He looks like he could be a good quarterback. I got a feeling his stock is going to rise to the point where he's, overrated. Like he might be a top 10 pick before it's over with, And then the Redskins moving up. I mean, they could do it, but I don't want to see them just move up just so they can get a guy that they're not sure of. They need to be able to move up and get a guy that they definitely want. And I know that Locke is the best of the seniors that are coming out. Or at least he's the best that, as far as what it looks like now. But we'll see how that goes. Another thing I was looking at, today being the day that the Pro Bowl goes down, I saw that for the third straight year, even though Trent Williams was voted to the Pro Bowl, he wasn't going to play. He pulled out after he didn't practice on Wednesday and stated, something to do with an injury. It wasn't anything specific that he said. It was just injury related. Just a side thought. Trent hasn't played a full 16-game season since 2013, and he's only played 16 games twice in 10 years that he's been with us. Now, nobody should take that as me trying to read into anything or say anything, because I value Trent Williams very highly on the football team. I believe he is still the best football player on the Redskins team. I want Washington to rework his deal to make him a Redskins for life. But it's starting to look like maybe we should start thinking about, keeping another grooming another full-time tackle to step in for him when it's time for him to go. And even though I value Ty Nsekhe as a good backup and a good six-man, quote-unquote, I think maybe we need somebody that's young. Maybe Jerron Christensen will bring that, hopefully. But that stands to be seen still. In the back of our heads, we need to have a thought back there thinking that before it's all said and done, we're going to need another beast left tackle. Is Jerron more of a right tackle? That's where I think he was placed last year. So we'll have to see. There is a difference. Those right tackles, they tend to be a little bit more passive. I know Morgan Moses is a monster, and he's humongous. Right tackles tend to be a little bit more passive. The left tackles tend to be a little bit more, in your face, down to do the business. And, of course, when it comes to left tackles, Trent Williams is probably the fastest lineman in football. Be nice to see if we maybe put a left guard next to him this year that's worthy of that line getting a lot better on that side. Right now it's already been a good side just because he's on it. All right, well, I wanted to take a quick look at the upcoming important dates in the NFL. And of course, everybody knows that we had the Pro Bowl today and the Senior Bowl yesterday. But some other dates in there that may be worth looking at. Of course, Super Bowl on February 3rd. Waiver system opens on February 4th. And then the scouting combines on February 26th. You know, and the scouting combine is really going to bring a lot to the table in terms of where we'll head in conversations, not only on this channel, but where the team will head in conversations on who they're going to draft, obviously, and where, you know, we'll have more of an idea of how these prospects are all shaping out. It's always good to see, you know, just how high they can jump, how fast are they, you know, even though it's one of the most boringest things to watch. You know, it's always good to see the afterwards, you know, and all the information that just flows, you know, and plus I'm interested to see the height on a couple of the quarterbacks, mainly Murray. I want to see, you know, is he a lot shorter than what he's listed as, or is he right around where he's supposed to be? Not that that really changes how I view him, but, you know, it's the intangibles in between that I like to see when it comes to the combine. I want to talk a little bit about some of the coaching decisions or coaching hiring decisions that are being made in the last few days, few weeks, I should say. But it does appear like Jay Gruden could have his hands in a lot of these hirings because it looks like a lot of guys with Tampa Bay connections. You know, it's like 6 degrees of Tampa Bay with Gruden and Allen and their hiring. And I'm not certain why. You know, it'd be different if Tampa Bay was a glorified franchise with tons of history. And I'm not trying to even talk down on Tampa Bay. I mean, they've won one championship, and at one point in time, they were viewed as, well, let's just be honest, the laughingstock of football. Of course, that's been many moons ago. But in the here and now, Tampa Bay is not the starting and ending point for coaching talent. They really aren't. And, you know, I know that there's a connection because of John Gruden and Jay Gruden growing up in that area. But it's really getting old seeing these off-the-wall Tampa Bay Buccaneer connections with these coaches. You know, I'm not certain. Have we even really seen any coaches that haven't been hired without a Tampa Bay connection? I've seen a lot of Cleveland connections lately, too. I don't really like that either. And, again, it's nothing against Cleveland or Tampa Bay, but, you know, this is the Redskins we're talking about here. You know, they're my team, you know, so I don't really understand why we're going this route, especially with teams that weren't, I mean, coaches that weren't necessarily success stories. You know, on that thought, this week, DeAngelo Hall interviewed for our defensive backs coach, our secondaries coaching position, which was vacant. And I could kind of understand, you know, why perhaps he was passed up because of an experience situation. He has no experience. He's never been a coach, especially not at the professional level. I don't even think he's been an assistant or an intern or anything. And he interviewed for the job, and it appeared like maybe the Redskins wanted a little bit more experience. You know, they had Torian Gray there, who had some college experience but was kind of young and had never coached in the pros before. And after, you know, of course, Gray left and went to University of Florida, or back to University of Florida last week, and, you know, they had to fill the position, so they hired Ray Horton. Horton has connections to Cleveland and Tampa Bay. Of course, I think there's a few other teams, including the Redskins, that he's coached for before. But I made a video a little bit about Horton. If anybody's interested in wanting to go and to look at or listen to that, it's on the channel. But DeAngelo Hall interviewed for the open job, and he, of course, lost the job out to Horton. And at the same time, he had just interviewed for the same job with the University of Maryland, and in the process of waiting, he wanted to wait the Redskins job out and see where things went. he lost the University of Maryland job as well. So now he doesn't have a coaching job at all. Now, I could see Gruden maybe bring him in as an assistant. In my opinion, that's probably what should have happened to begin with. Bring the guy in, get him some experience under his belt. There's a good chance, if the team doesn't have some solid success next year, that there may be a whole new coaching staff coming in the near future. And if that happens, then Hall gets his shot again at another job interview, perhaps, in the near future. Unfortunately, probably with the same front office interviewing, but obviously without Jay Gruden in the way of making calls. I also don't think Gruden wants anybody in the way that's going to question authority. I'm not certain he knows how much he can rely on Hall, with Hall still knowing some of these guys in the locker room. It's just a thing to think about there. I don't question DeAngelo Hall's ability to coach or his knowledge of the game, but I'm just saying Gruden may be looking for something that's not there, or seeing something that's not there. Maybe he just wanted to go with the experienced guy with Ray Horton. But anyhow, I thought that was kind of shitty that Hall lost both jobs in the process. But we also hired a new tight ends coach, and I didn't make a video about this, but I'm going to take a stab at what this guy's name is. I think it's Brian Angelicio. I'm not sure. But I know that he's coached 7 years in the pros, but I know that he's got like 27 years of experience coaching overall. But like a few with Green Bay, a couple with the Browns, and before that, Tampa Bay. Again, with the Tampa Bay connections. But the tight end job, most people knew this was coming, that if you've been paying attention for a few years on this one. The old tight ends coach was Wes Phillips, which obviously is Wade Phillips' son. And he wanted to leave back when Sean McVay left the Redskins. He wanted to leave and go with him to the Rams, and the Redskins would not let him out of his contract. So essentially what Phillips did was he sat back and waited for his contract to run out, and he left the Redskins. Now, you can't be mad at somebody for doing that, and at the same time, it's not really Washington's fault. You know, this guy was connected with Sean McVay. They were friends. They're both young guys. You know, and in another effect, the Redskins had their chance to hire Wade Phillips a couple of years back, and they probably should have, and I'm still not certain why they didn't. And then Wes would have probably stayed, could have even been the Redskins' offensive coordinator at this point. Most people feel like he should have been elevated. I believe he was a quarterback when he played football, and he specializes with quarterbacks. But I believe he was stuck with the tight end position because the Redskins were kind of stacked in there with McVay and a couple of other guys in there. So I think it was Kavanaugh that was in there. But, you know, so he was stuck in as the tight ends coach so he could have a job and they keep that extra football mind in the building. But, you know, I don't really know what to expect from Angelicio. I don't want to get into disrespecting the man. A lot of people sometimes will say this since they've never heard of somebody that he must not be any good, but that's not necessarily true. I want to give this guy a chance. It's just that, you know, by looking at the history of who Gruden and Allen have hired, they haven't exactly hired strong, you know, strapping guys this side of Mike Shanahan. You know, Mike Shanahan came in and then brought in all that coaching talent that is now head coaching elsewhere. They didn't do well here, by the way. They did not. I think they got like 3 or 4 wins maybe that one season that they were all together, which is crazy when you think about it. But anyhow, new tight ends coach, new DBs coach. We'll have a new inside linebackers coach soon. We all knew that there was going to be some changes on that defensive side of the ball when it came to coaches. It actually needed to happen. I know some people get frustrated as soon as you see, oh, well, this coach left. Oh, no, you know. And I see it a lot of times, especially on Twitter, because everybody goes nuts on Twitter when something happens. But you should always think that maybe, just maybe, that coach wasn't doing his job and needed to be replaced. Now, obviously, I would have liked to have held on to Wes Phillips, but it's not always a situation where a guy should have kept his job or a guy left us. It could be mutual situations. I know Torian Gray, maybe there was some conversation I heard before about a little bit of lack of communication in the locker room between the players and him and, the defensive coordinator. There was obviously something going on. We had a lot of players calling out coaches last year. And, the team is not exactly helping things out the way that they did the interviewing of the defensive coaches just a week or so ago and stretching in since the season ended. They brought in 4 or 5 guys, Steve Wilks, Todd Bowles, Greg Williams, Joe Woods. These guys were brought in allegedly, like Allen said the other day, allegedly quoting him to kind of, gauge how things were in the league or how they wanted to gauge defensive things and where the team was at and wanted to check things out with these guys and see how they felt with this and always looking for new things to help out with. And trying to even say that Greg Minuski was in the room when these guys were interviewed, which is kind of awkward unless you're telling me that Todd Bowles was interviewed for a secondary position, which I don't believe. These guys are coming off of head coaching jobs, or all of them, well, Woods and Williams aren't. But, the way that they all left the building without a job, it's really weird how all that went down. And then we had a report come out that Snyder personally wanted Greg Williams and Bowles to take over and was willing to give them the keys to the castle, so to speak, on defense to do it. But you have to ask yourself when you hear information like that, is that good? Is that bad? Or is that maybe even a little bit of fake news? I mean, you have to really search out the real question there. Everyone seems to have an agenda when it comes to Snyder. Redskin fans just don't like the guy. Now, I'm not going to say all Redskin fans, but the majority just don't like the guy. And it's quite obvious, as I started out this episode talking about, that most of America doesn't like the guy. So, you have to really ask, is that good, bad, or maybe even fake news? By good, I mean, is Snyder finally getting involved because he sees that change needs to happen? Or is it bad, maybe because it shows that Snyder's meddling? Or is it fake news because the outlets that report this stuff all have agendas? They all bash the team all year long. Don't ever forget that. So I don't want Redskin fans to ever forget some of the outlets that people listen to really spend a good portion of their time trying to come up with new reasons why fans should not be happy. If you ever want to really gauge them, wait until a good piece of news comes out and then go and look and see how those same people react to the good news. And if they're immediately trying to down the good news, then you know that they're trying to get clicks off of the team doing bad. It's a known thing amongst the media that when the team does bad, that their view count goes up because they bash the team. Fans come in with their emotions high and feed into it. It's just a routine. A lot of the media does it. It's not just DC media. But at the same time, fans get sick of it after a while and stop paying attention. Looking at some of the open vacancies, I think we still got a linebacker coach position there. Allen, once again, said in his interview that Gruden was interviewing coaches this week. We never got an announcement on the linebacker coach. So I guess we'll see how that all pans out. Yeah, I thought at first maybe they might downgrade Minuski and hire another defensive coordinator. But that just doesn't seem like that would even work. Minuski wouldn't go for that, I wouldn't think. I think he would probably make him force him to fire him. I don't know. Has that ever happened before? I think like Linehan with Dallas maybe did something like that, like stepped down from being the offensive coordinator to a lower position. I'm not certain though. But it's pretty obvious, I think, that Wes Phillips will end up over there with McVay, especially with his coaching staff taking a hit, and being rated at this point by everybody and anybody. I know next week we got the Super Bowl coming up, and I want to go ahead and say that I'm definitely going to be rooting against the Patriots. And the main reason that is because I do not like Tom Brady. I don't. He's a very unlikable person. And, I'll be quite honest with everybody when I say this. It's not really on a hater kind of feel, because, like, to me, like, I hate the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, obviously I'm supposed to because I'm a Redskin fan. But I don't hate the New England Patriots. But I can't stand Tom Brady. But it's not really a hate. I think it's more so, I think it's a misplacement of greatness in the conversation with the Patriots. It bothers me a little bit. People are so quick to say that Tom Brady is the best quarterback of all time. But in actuality, he's really not, okay? Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniel are the probably best coach, offensive coordinator combination, and they've been together for a while now. Now, Belichick has his own pull on is he the greatest coach of all time? It's really hard to argue that now. Him and Walsh are up there. Lombardi is up there. I think Belichick is, if he wins another Super Bowl, I mean, they go to the Super Bowl like every year now. It's hard to say that he's not the greatest. You got the cheating scandals, and that knocks them back a notch. That's a reason why a lot of people can't stand Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. That's why. But for me, it bothers me when people say he's the greatest of all time, but they don't realize that without Belichick and his game planning and the continuity that they keep with having the same coach and coordinator is really what keeps it all together. And I mean, they're polished. They know what they're doing each year. They can plug and play with different players at the skill spots as long as they have the right players on the line to block and the players buy into the scheme. They're always going to do well. But I'm picking the Rams, and that's because I would rather see Sean McVay get his first Super Bowl win than see Belichick and Brady get their sixth. That's just me not wanting to see another team get 6 Super Bowls. But there's really no hatred there. I mean, if they win a 6th Super Bowl, it'll feel the same way it did when the Steelers did. It'll just be like, oh, well, they still got more than we got, which is getting old. I'd like to be able to change that in the next coming years. I feel like next year is a big transitional year with the Redskins. If they don't cross a couple plateaus, we could have some major changes in the organization. I think most people wanted that change this year, but nobody really wants to admit that the team was doing well before Alex Smith got hurt. Everybody kind of gets caught up in the, let's get angry because they suck, and injury is what caused that. And, a lot of times you have to wait for outside individuals to really tell you that. And I've heard more opposing fan bases tell me, hey, your team would have won the East had you guys not hit the injury bug, And Redskin fans tend to forget that or tend to not even want to hear that conversation anymore because it's the same conversation they heard the year before last. And completely understood because I am frustrated as I can be. And I've stated in past videos that I think it's time for the team to get a better training staff. We'll see how that goes. But anyway, I'm not certain how much longer it's going to be before I start doing live shows, but I want to ask everybody again to please hit that notification button. It's up there next to the subscribe button. Actually, it might be underneath the video. I'm not even certain with the way YouTube does things anymore. But right next to the subscribe button, there it looks like a bell. And if you hit that bell, it will notify you whenever I upload a video or whenever I go live. Plan on start doing that real soon. I just haven't started doing it yet because I'm trying to get the call-in set up down to where I have a speaker and everybody can hear the caller and all that's taken care of. So once I get that taken care of, we'll be a go. But that's all I got right now. Check y'all guys out later. Hail to the Redskins. Peace.